terms of the ability to really ensure that the world peace is established? Do you see a setback for the UNGA?
Well, the General Assembly of the United Nations, like you said, is the body that aggregates the views and opinion of all nations.
Yeah.
So far listed among the nations to speak in this current section are about 108 countries in the world. And to aggregate the views of 108 countries, you have the Secretary General of the United Nations, who acts as a spokesman for the United Nations. Then, of course, you have the Security Council, where most of the powers of the United Nations lies. However, it is important to give all the countries in the world that are members of the United Nations the opportunity to speak their minds. That is, as if human beings, the countries should be able to speak what is foremost in their own country's problems, highlight the problems of their countries. Like we mentioned just now, security problems in Nigeria. So if we were to be able to aggregate and honestly use the General Assembly as a platform for aggregating our problems in Nigeria, then you might see some countries that may, even outside the Security Council, be willing to enter into what is called in international politics bilateral relationship with Nigeria, with the hope of assisting Nigeria outside the platform of the General Assembly itself. But they must see you as you are being honest. So if any country comes to General Assembly and begin to tell lies to the world, if they have ambassadors in that country that is lying, they simply listen to you and clap for you. And your president will go away. But they know the truth about your country. But it is now left, when it comes to assistance, to two procedures. One, how far you can bilaterally convince one another to assist you. Like if we want the British government to assist you, you must be honest to the British government. During this session, you have what is called side sessions, where you can discuss with other countries. Interact. So your lies becomes open. Then you have the Security Council, where the third world countries like Africa may not be able to influence whatever happens there. Even when we say a third world country has a chairman of the Security Council, what about the other 5 countries of the world that has the veto powers? So that when a decision of the General Assembly is put in place and the Security Council decides to vote on it, where one of the 5 member countries that have veto power disagrees, all the grammar in the General Assembly, all the speeches in the General Assembly, and your statements in the Security Council becomes a nullity. So the main purpose of this General Assembly is to allow countries come together, talk, and use the opportunity to lobby other countries that may be able to help you. You can imagine if the Ghanaian president is to want something from the Chinese government or Indonesian government or the Canadians. You can look at the distance the Ghanaian president will have to travel round. But right here, all of you are assembled in New York. So you have the opportunity to interact. That is the main advantage of the General Assembly, not implementation of whether there will be development in the world, whether there will be peace in the world, whether there will be climate change in the world. These can be policy statements, but implementation is a different issue.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's look at this aspect of Afghanistan, for instance, which has been controlled by the Taliban government. Let's look at it, because before now, it was expected that they will be given a slot for debate, but they missed that slot. What do you make of this? Do you see this as an opportunity for Afghanistan to leverage or to ensure that they meet up with ensuring that they respect rights for people, rights for children, rights for women, and ensure that they don't do anything that would bring about the attention of the world against Afghanistan? Because at present, it's expected that they should do the needful in order to be enlisted. What do you make of all this development as it pertains to Afghanistan?
Well, the first thing is that Afghanistan is a member of the United Nations.
Yeah.
It's a member state. The challenge with Afghanistan at the moment is the fact that there is a new government. Well, it's a returning government anyway, 20 years hiatus. And then it has not fully integrated into the international system, and such that aids that are due to it, its foreign reserves that it has in other countries, those ones are currently not available to the Taliban government. So that's the background to the fact that now you have a United Nations General Assembly, and because the Taliban-led administration has not been fully integrated to the world, you don't expect that it's automatic that they will be admitted to the to deliver the president, the head of government, to be admitted to deliver a statement at the General Assembly. So I wasn't surprised, essentially, when they weren't given that speaking opportunity.
Okay, but at present we seem to have two representatives. One that was appointed by the outgone President Ashraf Ghani, and that done by the current Taliban. So how do they resolve the differences? Or is it in the hands of the United Nations to schedule who to represent Afghanistan, or the Taliban government?
Who is in charge of Afghanistan is not an issue in question.
Okay.
Ashraf Ghani fled to Dubai. He fled the country. He abandoned the people and fled to Dubai. So
that makes the
issue is not. And of course, under the Trump administration, there was an agreement. They negotiated. The Trump administration negotiated with the Taliban leaders, in Qatar during the Doha meetings in Qatar, and then they agreed on a transfer of power. The previous and which the Biden administration did not go against. The only thing the U.S. has said is that they were surprised by the speed at which the Ashraf Ghani government fell. That's the only thing that surprised them. It's not as if they saw it coming. Everybody, the world saw it coming, that in 20 years of adventurism by the U.S. and other allies, they have failed to build institutions that can stand, the feeding bottle democracy that the West was trying to implement in Afghanistan. Democracy has to be autochthonous, has to be homegrown. But when you import leaders, when you take charge effectively of a foreign country, without allowing harnessing the local capacities and capabilities, without indeed building local institutions, what you are seeing is the mess that Afghanistan is today. And so the question as to who is the legitimate president, government of Afghanistan, I think it's a foregone conclusion. Okay. The world knows that it is the Taliban government that is in charge. Okay. But what Taliban needs to do is to do those things, put those steps in, put those machineries in place that will ensure freedoms, the rights, quality of life, standard of living, and the rights of every Afghan. One particular issue is the place of women. Yes. In a Taliban-led society. Yes, they have allowed primary school children to go to school, but the government as constituted now does not have a woman. One, and then female students in higher education status, that are secondary and tertiary, have currently not resumed. So the world is looking. This is not the kind of government that we expect in the 21st century international system. Yes. So that's where I think Okay. A.P. Thomas, you are a custodian of the law, and let's look at it legally. Let's look at the aspect of human rights abuses and how Taliban control came up in Afghanistan. What do you see as measures that could be expected for the Taliban-controlled government to really be part fully of the United Nations General Assembly? Well, first and foremost, it's not surprising that their president or whoever thinks is the president of Afghanistan to be there at United Nations. There are standards expected of any country to be fully represented at United Nations. Besides the payment of your own dues, it's like you belong to a club, you have to pay some dues. Apart from that, the manner in which the government came in
abruptly
is Vietnamese, what we call Vietnamese, through the use of force. So for now, it is too close to the holding of the General Assembly of United Nations. While the government that was recognized is still represented in United Nations. They still have somebody in United Nations. It's like Myanmar, Burma. The person they know is the one that was recognized by the former government that was toppled. So until they have a firm government in place, and that firm government must be committed to human rights, to minimum standards of the welfare of their people. Right now, the Taliban are still fighting the ISIS. The control of Kabul, the capital, and Kandahar, where Taliban was better, cannot be equated to mean that you are in total control of Afghanistan. But most importantly is the fact that no country in the United Nations, as of today, has come out openly to recognize the government in Afghanistan. It is important that your government must be recognized. It may not be recognized by all countries, no. But the important countries, like the Russians are sitting by the fence and looking. They want to see what is developing. The Chinese who are sitting on the fence, they want to see what is going on. They are interested in Afghanistan. After all, the Soviet Union also invaded Afghanistan for several decades until they ran away too. So they too will not rush to recognize this government and make it a part of United Nations. The Americans and the allies from the European countries and others were there for 20 years, 2 decades. And they left in a rush. And even while trying to retreat, the Talibanist terrorism took place. And 12 Marines and about 100 Afghanistans were killed by terrorism. So America is not in a hurry to recognize this government. So until Britain, France, Germany, and the other countries that really control the Security Council of the United Nations begins to recognize Afghanistan, I don't see how whoever is the Talibanist president can address the General Assembly as at this moment.
Okay.
So they will have to wait for the next General Assembly. However, their non-appearance, that is, their president's non-appearance, is enough to let them know that they must go beyond the ordinary viva voce promise. That is the voice promise that females will be given a chance, women will be recognized in their country, that women will be allowed to go to school. No. They must go beyond.
They must go beyond that.
Beyond West. The world is watching. The world is now a global village. So everybody wants to see what you are doing. If you go back to the archaic Islamic way and say you want to practice the old way you were doing, in fact, Islam does not even forbid education. It doesn't forbid education. I know we have school behind our mosque and we have females there.
Yeah, as a Muslim.
So if you now decide to go with the archaic one that you have established on your own and say you will not allow females to go to school, of course, the civilized world will not recognize you. And if they don't, the possibility of you coming to the United Nations will become more stiffer. So they have to go on that. Not only women going to school. The idea of bringing people to uncivilized punishment. You take people in the street and begin to whip them. You can even see that even in your own country here in Nigeria, you no longer kill children in school anymore. It means you are becoming civilized in your country. So Afghanistan has to develop along that line.
Okay.
And stop the barbaric way of treating suspects.
Okay.
Then there must be rule of law in Afghanistan. You don't begin to punish people without hearing them, without a due process. The rule of law talks about the due process of law. Because you asked me the question about law.
Yes.
So there must be established judicial system, which is non-existent now. They have to establish that. It will take time.
To take time.
It's not just a school, it's not like a classroom. To set up a judiciary, then you set up the procedures, the whole entire procedure. It takes time.
Okay.
So they should not be in a hurry to come to New York.
Okay.
Because I don't see how America will even allow them. Though the Geneva Convention says all diplomats must be allowed into New York. They will give you 1 or 2 reasons why you cannot come into New York.
Thank you. In case you're just watching, it's International Forum, and I've been having a chat with Abayomi Thomas, that is A.B. Thomas, a legal practitioner, and of course, Ibrahim Momo, who is a social media influencer and a public affairs commentator on the topic, looking at the armed conflict and terrorism. They need to address it along the lines of the United Nations General Assembly on the 76th session. My name is Philip Omo Gukman. I've been your host on this, and I'm still discussing with the guests with me in the studio. But quickly, let's look at this aspect, Ibrahim Momo, where the United States basically seem to be playing the big brother role. And you look at the statement credited to Joe Biden, the U.S. president, where he did say that as a government, they are going to ensure that they prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Now, we have this challenge of nuclearization that is changing the course of things in the world, and the world seems to be on a very hot crucible. Now, how do you think the U.S. is going to do this?
Well, without the force of war, it's almost impossible for one country to determine the nuclear capability of another country. It's almost impossible. I say that because what the world is turning into now is what we can call the nuclear haves and the nuclear have-nots. It appears that some countries have arrogated themselves the power to have nuclear weapons, and to, not just nuclear weapons, sorry, nuclear technology.
Okay.
And then to deny others the right to have them. And that is why, for example, 90% of global nuclear warheads, the stockpile, is in just 2 countries.
Wow.
The US and Russia. 90% of global stockpile of nuclear warheads is in just 2 countries. That country is telling another country that you have no right to own weapons. The issue should be, should we have nuclear weapons at all? The answer is an absolutely no. We don't do that, because nuclear weaponry it leads to what we call MAD, M-A-D, mutual assured destructions. We can make, or they can do all the fisticuffs. Russia, China, US, they can argue, North Korea, they can argue all the arguments, but they will never go to war, because it is mad. That kind of war is mad. Mutual assured destruction. They will not go to war. Because
the countries involved basically will also suffer the consequences.
They have the means of destruction, you know, annihilation of the other. So it's going to be mutual destruction.
Mutual destruction.
So now, the issue is that nuclear technology is the most advanced technology in the world as of today. In the context that, when it comes to countries that are facing power challenges, even the issue of agriculture, even where it is called X-ray, ultrasound scan, all these are things that nuclear technology has helped to advance. Power generation, countries that
at least it has positive sides.
Yeah,
despite the fact that it's quite dangerous and it can go a long way to
the truth is that technology has both, every technology has both, even chemicals.
Yeah, both advantages and disadvantages.
Too, biological weapons. So you see, every technology has its own usefulness and deleterious consequences. Okay. It is, to what end do you put it to? In fact, Iran is a nuclear country. It has nuclear technology. But, there's what we call the development of nuclear weapons capability which is
going beyond the centrifugal force.
You know, which is what the challenge is. That you cannot enrich uranium to a particular level. That's when it becomes a nuclear capable arsenal. So that is very, and I think that the US ought to lead on this in delimiting its nuclear capability, nuclear warhead capability. It's not, show people that this is the right thing to do. In fact, the truth is that...
Would that not be a threat against the US if they do that? Because that means...
The truth is, the US today is tired of war. After spending $2 trillion, $2 trillion is about 100 years of Nigeria's national budget. 100 years of Nigeria's national budget is $2 trillion. After spending so much in Afghanistan, with so many thousands of lives, both Afghan and US soldiers dead, what did they achieve? In fact, you heard Joe Biden saying in his speech at the United Nations that for the first time in 20 years, America is not involved in any war around the world.
Wow.
What that tells you is that war has become a very expensive. In fact, it was Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, that said about 5 years ago that war is overfunded and peace is suffering lack of funds. In the world today, war is overfunded. Imagine $2 trillion. What if you have invested $2 trillion in the entire Africa? Africa will be transformed.
Wow.
The 54 countries of Africa will be transformed. $2 trillion. That's what was spent in weaponry in just one country in over 20 years. And then you left there without achieving anything. The government you deposed on the ground that they were harboring a terrorist, Osama bin Laden. The Taliban were the government in Afghanistan before the US came. And they moved against them because Afghanistan, right then in Afghanistan, you had Osama bin Laden, who was said to have funded the 9/11 attacks in the US. Now, after 20 years of aventurism, military aventurism, you have left there, and the same people are back to power. So what have you achieved? So this indeed is the issue that no country really has the right to determine whether some should be nuclear haves and nuclear have not.
Okay.
You should lead by example. That's
okay.
what we should.
In the speech of President Muhammadu Buhari, he did say that countries with these weapons, with this technology, they should put away the nuclear weapons out of the world. That is, United States is among, so that means United States will have to put away its nuclear technology or weapons. Do you see that as possible, being that United States, for instance, like he said, that United States should be an example? But if they do that, don't you think some countries or superpowers that are threatened already against the United States will be a challenge for United States?
I will tell you straight away. Our president was not right. He wasn't right. For instance, those who are on this issue of having some countries limited to having nuclear power.
Okay. You continue, you still have the floor, but you'll continue after this break. We'll take a short break. Do stay tuned. Thank you very much for staying with me. Before that break, A.B. Thomas had the floor.
Yes. You see, our president was not globally informed. If he was, he would realize one thing. Where there is what is called deterrent action. If America did not possess nuclear weapons, Russia would have been more irritative than they are doing now. Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine. Has the United Nations been able to extricate Crimea from Russia? The answer is no. Russia attempted to go into the eastern part of Ukraine, but the presence of American troops in Poland and some other Eastern European countries deterred Russia. Ditto China. China would have forcefully taken over Taiwan because China possesses nuclear weapon.
Okay.
But the presence of American troops in South Korea is acting as a check and balance on the nuclear arsenal of China.
So that shows superiority.
So it shows that some countries must be allowed to possess nuclear weapons, while some countries must not be allowed to possess nuclear weapons. I will not mention names because if I mention, you will be happy. Countries that don't have reasonable system of leadership. Let me use that word.
Okay.
Reasonable system of leadership.
Shouldn't even go near acquiring nuclear technology.
Because if they do,
they will use it
they will use it anyhow.
No, I think the point has to be clear. Is this nuclear technology or nuclear weapons?
Okay. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you.
Me.
He has a
I
problem.
don't want to be sure.
We have all agreed that we need nuclear technology.
Okay.
That is not the problem. You need it for, if you have it in your country, your whole country, you won't be having problem with electricity.
Correct.
Okay.
All right?
But having it as a weapon
As a
of mass
militarized
destruction.
weapon, for mass destruction, you need check and balances. And that is why America cannot, on its own, venture and take some of their warplanes into Russia. And when Russia's warplanes almost entered UK territory, and UK scrambled warplanes, don't forget that America too has what is called B-2 bombers stationed in northern part of UK that can carry nuclear warheads. And Russia has had to go back. So you need in international relations checks and balances to check the SSs of some countries. It's not like ECOWAS, where one country can bully other countries. No. This is United Nations. If these nuclear weapons are in the hands of countries that don't have crazy leaders, we don't have problem. But if you now say Iran should possess nuclear weapon, how are you sure the Ayatollah will not press the button, not the president? Because they have a president, they have the spiritual leader, the Ayatollah. The Ayatollah is supreme. He's superior to the president of Iran. In that kind of situation, where democracy is meaningless, where Ayatollah can say what happens, and Iran decides to have nuclear weapon. You see, one of the things Biden said, which most people may not take good note of, is that countries should embark on diplomacy in resolving whatever conflicts.
And not the use of
force.
Nuclearization.
So if you look at it, till today, I am not a supporter of Israel. Please mark me. I am not. But till today, Iran is saying there is no need for Israel to exist. Israel has nuclear weapon. America does not talk about Israel. The other members of the Security Council don't talk about Israel that has nuclear weapon that is busy annexing other people's territories. But Israel still has a civilized system of governance. So you don't expect one rascal to come tomorrow as a prime minister and press nuclear button.
That is for Israel.
That's for Israel.
Okay, so that could be the reason why attention is not on them by the US.
That is why I'm saying, Biden saying on behalf of America that Iran will not be allowed to possess nuclear weapons. I support it.
Okay.
I support it. It's like you are saying North Korea should be allowed to possess nuclear weapon.
Which they already have.
You are saying they have it.
Yes.
You are saying they have it. But the world knows that they have developed to a very large extent the capability to deliver, to manufacture nuclear weapons.
Yes.
But they don't have the ability to deliver it yet. They don't have the ability to deliver it. If they have it, I can assure you, that short man in North Korea would have attempted it on.
But there has been launches.
Yes, you launch.
Yes, there
but
have been
does it carry
launches.
the nuclear itself? It doesn't. You launch a ballistic missile that can get as far as Los Angeles,
Yeah.
in California,
Or a cruise missile.
or a cruise missile, you need special technology to deliver.
Wow.
Manufacturing is one. Delivery is another.
It's another.
So let nobody deceive themselves that, oh, does Nigeria not even Nigeria, your country? It has nuclear technology. I can tell you, we have scientists here who have nuclear technology here.
Okay, but we don't have
But
nuclear
we
weapons.
don't deliver anything. We have
Okay.
not manufactured anything.
Okay.
As usual, we kill those who manufacture good things in Nigeria. Now when I say kill, I mean we suppress them.
Okay, but you see it as a sensible thing for Nigeria to develop such.
Why not? Why not? If Nigeria were to be a country that has a good system of governance, I will support Nigeria having nuclear weapons.
But at present, where we have issues of insurgency, banditry,
You can imagine.
do you think somebody can
If
just come
you-
up and press the button and then we are done?
Because you don't have a good system of governance. Because if you have it, you don't need to press nuclear button to defeat Boko Haram or to defeat banditry. After all, you have heard from the media that some Nigerians are even sponsoring this banditry and Boko Haram. They've said a country, whether Kuwait also or UAE, has released a list of some Nigerians in civilized countries.
Yeah.
Such people whose names have been released ought by now to be facing trial in a court of law. So you can say that Nigeria is not that kind of country I am referring to. No. Where those who rule you here are 90% from one tribe. You don't find that in America. You don't find that in any civilized country. So if your own president went there and said, oh, this issue of nuclear weapon and the whole thing concerning
Should
the
put aside.
structure should have equity, fairness, and justice. I laughed in my language. I laughed in Yoruba language. Why? If there is fairness in Nigeria, if there is equity in Nigeria, if there is justice in Nigeria, the Sunday Igbohos, the Nnamdi Kanus will not arise. It is because there's no justice, no equity, no fairness in Nigeria that we are now seeing a Boko Haram threat that came up long ago becoming a commercial business.
Okay, but you may be wrong to say that there's no justice, there's no fairness, because basically we look at what the government is up to, and we have a judicial system that is thriving.
When I say Nigeria does not have justice, equity, and fairness, you as a journalist should look at the number of people who are in government in Nigeria and the geographical spread. Start from there, simple thing. And if you start from there, if you look at those who are at the federal level, who are they? Where are they from? Look at those in those states. Who are the commissioners to be appointed? Where are they from?
But don't forget that we are a developing nation, and so we could be developing
The
in
fact
this
that you are
regard.
developing does not mean we should be developing in a negative and nepotist manner. If we want justice, justice is justice in England, is justice in Nigeria, is justice in Myanmar, is justice in Afghanistan.
It doesn't change.
If we want fairness, fairness does not have any other language than let these things go equally. If we are saying the United Nations should be reorganized, the word reorganized that our president mentioned in United Nations is what people in Nigeria are calling restructuring. It's the same thing. Reorganize United Nations. Why not? Why should only 5 countries have veto power? We have about 6 continents. Why should Africa not have a veto power? If Nigeria is not qualified to have veto power, why not give it to South Africa or Ghana? So if you are talking of we should restore, we should reorganize United Nations, you come home and allow restructuring, which is the same thing as reorganization.
Okay.
Then we'll be talking of justice, equity, and fairness.
Okay, I'll come back to you to deliver
Yes.
the last lap on
Yes.
this show, but let's look at your viewpoint. The whole aspect of putting away the nuclear weaponry. You said that the United States should have shown an example, but with what he just said, don't you think looking at the need to use it as a bargaining chip or for checks and balances, that could be near impossibility for the U.S.?
Well, the nuclear technology was developed toward the end of the Second World War and at the height of the Cold War. But the world is not facing a third world war. Neither is it facing, well, of course, in a way, since Trump, there's like the onslaught of a Cold War between the East and the West. Russia and China on one side, and the US and other allies. But again, when you look at the allies of the US has shown that whether it was Trump's America First or Biden's America is back mantra, it has shown that it is now on a mission of isolationism. It is interested in its own self. And the way the international system is structured, it puts the US at the top of the international system.
Okay, like the world police.
Yeah, that is how the US-led system structured the international system. Again, the idea of the Security Council is also to reinforce that. Look at Security Council members, 3 of the 5 are Western allies. The Warsaw Pact and the NATO alliance. That's how the Security Council, Warsaw Pact, you have countries like China and Russia on one side, and then the NATO alliance, you have the US, you have the UK, and you have France. These are the power blocks that form that Security Council. Now, the world ought to have moved beyond this, but the concept of the macho man, they call it realpolitik or realism, does not allow certain countries. See, if you look at the cost, the US budget for defense alone, US budget for defense alone, it's more than the entire budgetary estimate for the entire Africa. I'm not talking about US budget too.
Just for defense.
Just, you don't do the budget the way we do our budget. No, where you have a total package of preparation act. No. Just for you have a defense budget, for example, it's more than entire. So when you look at that kind of country, what are you investing? What are you spending so much on in defense for? If not to make the world insecure. What has? If
not to make the world what?
Insecure. There's the concept of detente, preventing.
But don't you think it's for checks and balances?
No, the idea
to use that.
The idea of checks and balances is when you have a power and counter power. When you have a balance of power. That's why you talk about checks and balances. Because there's no balance in. In fact, I just mentioned, in fact, 25% of global budget for defense is spent by the US alone. 25% of global budget for defense is spent by US alone.
Because they make money.
The US is also the most indebted country in the world, though. By far the most indebted country in the world. It's able to get away with. The US can, because the first thing, leadership. So when you say power, it's about planning. The US started by developing an international system where it's at the top. That's how it started. Then it moved on to developing a very strong military capability. That is how the US, and then of course it has built its economy to the extent that it's about 21% of global GDP. The US economy is about even bigger than the entire European Union combined economy. The US economy is bigger than the entire European Union has Germany, it has France, it has Netherlands, and so on and so forth. So we are seeing that country, cannot be talking about checks and balance. When itself is without due respect, the US is the greatest threat the world faces. Look at what the US has wreaked to the world. What it has done in Afghanistan, what it has done in Iraq, what it has done in Libya, what it has done in Vietnam, what it has done all over the world.
But when you say its greatest threat, are you
militarily,
not also...
militarily.
Okay, well, because if you are looking at a respect for the rule of law, rights of the people, I think they are on point.
You can see that even my side somebody is laughing too. When it comes to the abuse of rights, the US is #1 in the world.
No.
We don't do respect. We don't do respect. When it comes to the... No, I'm talking at the global level. I'm not talking about the domestic this thing. Global rights. The US does not respect the rights of other countries.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Let's get your viewpoint.
On that point, at the global level.
Yes.
Human rights, global
human rights.
Yeah, as US.
I will tell you that US has been trying. Even Biden said that the democracy they practice in America may not be the best. But it's a good example for other countries to copy. Your 1999 Constitution, I must tell you, I'm a lawyer, was copied by one single professor from the North. Copied it from the 1998 Abacha Constitution, which was tailored along the same line with the American Constitution. Most of the world today want to be like America. If you ask your brother, your sister, which country in the world you want to go to, they will tell you America.
Are you sure that could be correct?
I am telling you, in Yoruba language, we have what we say about Lagos.
Okay.
Now, if you look at it,
if you can translate that, so that
okay, what it means is that Lagos can take the good, can take the bad. America has a lot of such people. But if you look at America these days, they are trying to weed away the lazy ones and take the good ones into America. But where are we going? Your hospitals in Nigeria has been on strike for 2 years. I mean, for 2 months. Saudi Arabia opened their embassy and started packing your people.
Are you referring to the National Association of Resident Doctors?
Yes.
That doesn't mean that the hospitals are on strike.
Because I'm a doctor.
That doesn't mean the hospitals are on strike.
Now,
it's
Saudi
now that is on
Arabia
strike.
is taking away your best brains. But I can't see the best brains in America leaving America to come to Nigeria and say we want to live in Nigeria. The security you are talking about in the whole world. President Biden said at the UN session that America cannot continue to be the police of the whole world. Nevertheless,
give them that work.
He said we will continue to be the highest donors to the whole world. So if you are helping, even Iran, from which they have just evacuated, they are even thinking of how much they will donate to Iran, I mean Afghanistan, to help Afghanistan, to train women. They are thinking of how much they will donate to Asia countries. They are even thinking of how much they will donate to build institutions in Africa.
Okay.
So if you look at all these things America is doing, they are still by far better than China.
Okay, thank you.
From Asia.
Thank you.
China will give you
Thank you. You weren't having the floor. I just wanted you to come in there. Finish on your point.
Okay, well, I think that he has made the point succinctly.
Okay.
The U.S. is doing a good job economically and otherwise. In fact, in terms of
and so it's not. Are you saying that you want to?
No.
Are you saying that you want to go back to what you said, as in that it's not the biggest threat
Let me make
the world has?
Let me make the point.
Because that's what you said earlier.
But the challenge I think the U.S. creates is the confusion, the abuse, the non-respect of the rights of other nation states and the citizens of other states in the world. That's the point I made. I've not said that U.S. has not been a benevolent a dictator, if I have to use to the word. It has been benevolent in dictatorship. Yes, it has helped. It has been giving aids here and there. It has been spending money. For example, $2 trillion spent in Afghanistan.
But his position is a big threat.
Yeah, but it continues to be the greatest threat to global peace.
Okay. Oh.
Because look at
that seems not to sound well in the ears of Thomas.
Let me give the start. No, facts don't lie.
Okay.
Look at the world where you have crises all over the world. Look at them, those countries before the US and Africa. Nigerians used to go to Libya. I know 2 twins in Benin here. I grew up in Benin here, who traveled to Libya. Nigerians used to go to Libya before the US went to Libya.
Okay.
After
and did what it did. Is that what you mean?
How is Libya today? The US.
Are you saying?
Nigerians?
No.
I'll come back to you. Let him finish on this point. I'll come back to you, Abayami. All you need to do is to take note of what he's saying. If you want to counter it, you can counter it when you have your time. Go ahead.
I don't hold this for Nigeria.
Okay.
I am one of those countries. I am one of those citizens who, yes, wants the best for Nigeria, but says no. Nigeria has had one challenge. We're not talking about Nigeria.
Of course, it's part of it. It's part of it.
No, let me make the point.
Part of the world.
I think that we should not be binary. You should not say, because Nigeria is bad, you cannot criticize other people who are doing badly. That's not how
we can't say Nigeria is bad.
No.
Nobody says so.
There are areas that are not doing well.
Okay.
There are areas Nigeria is not doing well. The fact that Nigeria is not doing well does not mean that when there's a greater threat at the global sphere, we shouldn't mention it. That's not the way to look at this issue. Look at them on the individual merit. Nigeria has its own challenges.
Yes.
Principally, I think Nigeria has suffered from bad leadership. If we had the kind of leadership that the Asian tigers have had, Nigeria should have moved on from at least to the second world, if not the first world.
Okay.
But we have remained a third world underdeveloping country. I agree at that point. But what we are looking at is not Nigeria. All I'm addressing is not Nigeria, but the United States and its adventurism. And the United States went to Iraq, Saddam Hussein, deposed Saddam Hussein. How is Iraq today? The United States has gone to Afghanistan, spent 20 years. How is Afghanistan? Look at the imprints of the US in the world. Has this been a force for good or for evil. That's the point we have. That's the point
Okay,
I've made.
I think we can only extend this conversation in another edition of this show. But let's again look at this negotiations that went on in the time of Donald Trump with the North Korean president, looking at Kim Jong-un in 2018 that got stalled in 2019. There are some concerns that the Joe Biden may be having a setback to kickstart or restart the negotiations. Do you think there will be?
Honestly speaking, I don't think the Joe Biden administration would like to continue with Trump's negotiation with North Korea. The reason was that Trump's negotiation with North Korea did not serve any purpose. It was like showmanship. Trump going to South Korea, enter North Korea, cross a line. It was like a TV circus show. Nothing was achieved. But North Korea, Trump made sure that Iran did not even drop a pin in their nuclear sites, that they couldn't develop anything. Jonathan Trump did that.
Donald Trump
did that. He did that. He made sure that Iran did not improve on their nuclear capabilities. But on North Korea, he did nothing. It was showmanship.
Okay.
And that was why he was involved in, when I say short man in North Korea, it was Trump's name he called the man. You see, the problem is this. You have in that Korean peninsula, you have a dangerous North Korea, you have a Chinese imperialism developing in that area. And if you're not aware, China gave loan to one of the African countries, Zambia. And today China is in charge of the police of Zambia. And they are giving you loan here now. We are not getting our future to China. So Chinese imperialism in that Korean peninsula is such that a combination of China and North Korea will annihilate not only South Korea, it will include Japan, it will include Taiwan. So the best thing is to make sure that North Korea may have the technology to make nuclear bombs, but they never have the technology to deliver it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Let's get your viewpoint on this in 1 minute or 2 minutes as we wrap up.
Exactly what one is speaking?
Oh no, exactly what he said concerning the North Korea, the Kim Jong-un, the negotiations with the U.S. President Donald Trump, and now Joe Biden. What do you think of this?
The Trump era was a mistake. I'm not an American, but because of the way the U.S. is positioned in the world, entire system, whatever the U.S. does has a ripple effect across the world.
Okay.
It was a mistake because the diplomacy is built on tradition. There are standpoints. There is the issue of bilateral relationships, negotiations. There is the issue of sanctions. There are issues of cooperation. The United Nations, for example, and there are traditions that are followed, in diplomacy.
Okay.
Trump tore it up. Look at the case of Iran, which President Trump referred to consistently. One of the things you are seeing with Iran was that there was a JCPOA, a joint committee plan of action regarding, which was agreed by the P5+1, permanent member of the United Security Council plus Germany, with Iran on limiting Iran nuclear capability. That was the agreement that was made under the Obama era. What did Trump do? Cancelled it. That's not negotiation. That's not diplomacy.
Okay, what do you expect from Joe Biden?
I think that Joe Biden must lead America in peace,
okay,
as he has claimed to, not in war.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Thank you very much, A.B. Thomas. I think you've finished on your point. Or your last words?
My last words. I am happy with the way Joe Biden spoke at the General Assembly of the United Nations.
Okay.
He wants to lead a prosperous and a peaceful and diplomatic America.
Okay. Thank you. Well, we take this on another round, on another edition. On behalf of the entire production team that made this edition a success, My name is Philip Omo Gupon, and I'm saying stay away from trouble and goodbye.